Hello and welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. I am one of your hosts, Nick Noel.
And I'm player 2, Ron Stratton. Hello.
And today on Pixel Theater, we are going to be talking about the 2006 movie Silent Hill.
Sharon! Sharon! Somebody! Help!
Directed by Christopher Gans, starring, I don't remember, Sean Bean's in it, Rhoda Mitchell, some other people. Written by Richard Avery, who I guess kind of knows Quentin Tarantino, and then he, for some reason, gets some writing credits on Pulp Fiction because of it.
That's a good gig.
And it's a critical but somewhat commercial success at low reviewed, but I think it made like $100 million. So, good for it. But to start off, Ron, what's your experience with the Silent Hill franchise of games?
So Silent Hill,
It's a scary game. I know
it's a
that.
very scary game.
That's why I have very little experience with it.
So we have to go back to Resident Evil to explain why Silent Hill. So, well, no, just because
Why
Silent
has
Hill.
everything come back to Doom? Came back to Resident Evil.
Yeah,
This
that's
comes
true.
back to Resident.
Well,
Oh,
Resident
we did
Evil.
6 fucking podcasts on goddamn Resident Evil. I was hoping we could be fucking done with
No,
it.
we're never done with that franchise.
It's a
But Resident
formative
Evil kicked the
formative
doors
movie.
open on survival horror,
Okay.
and so that's when and it became popular because it was a cash cow, so everyone jumped on board. Konami's take on it, and it was I remember E3 being dismissed as like, oh, it's like Resident Evil but scarier, but it turned out to be just this incredibly just dense psychological horror, like very David Lynch inspired universe. And you're in this, it's kind of based on a true scenario in West Virginia, this town where the coal fires are still burning, and it's why it's so like
Well, that's what the movie's based on, right?
yeah, but the game touches on it too. Like the
Okay.
game, the movie, and we'll get into it in a minute, is slavishly faithful to the first game, but it doesn't know
except
why.
for the characters or plot, but sure.
Well, because the plot is slavishly devoted to the first one, but where
Yeah.
they misstep with the movie is that they introduce elements from the second one
Okay.
that were very personal and to the point of the protagonist of the second one, and that's why they don't work in this movie at all. They just put them in there because they're cool, but they
Gotcha.
really, Silent Hill is a town where when you go to it, it's different for everybody. Your Silent Hill is different than my Silent Hill. It's almost like another dimension, and that's not even really describing it really.
My Silent Hill, for instance, is going to be Very Loud Lake. So it's different. It's a different experience.
It took me like a bit to get that.
Shouting Lake, the Nick
Shouting
Noel
Lake
story.
um,
Hey, stop swimming in me.
Oh, Jesus. And it's funny looking at Silent Hill 1 now because it has aged very poorly. It's very rudimentary, rough PlayStation 1 graphics. I mean, the fog
I was
element
looking
then
at
is
some
so
of the gameplay. Yeah.
the fog element is so iconic, but it's really just there so they could run the game. They're hiding so much in the fog, but it helps it though. I think it makes it a really endearing and creepy game.
I may be wrong here, but it did seem like a lot of the horror came from the person's reaction to the situations, not necessarily how those characters were being menacing. Like I was watching so much gameplay of Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 where the protagonists were just walking around the monsters because they were moving so slow.
It's not a combat game. You get a rifle and some bullets, but it's like, oh, Jesus, you're just trying to get away from them. So the franchise, there's been multiple. There was Silent Hill 1, 2, 3. Then there was Silent Hill The Room. And it's kind of went into a lot of shoddy attempts at trying to capture what made Silent Hill great. And there was one for the Wii where you actually were with a therapist when you started the game. And it was really fascinating because
was it just like you reliving your experiences going to Silent Hill? And playing Silent Hill?
It was set up in a way to change the game based on your answers to questions. Like there was something about sexuality, and if you leaned toward that, a character in the game would show cleavage. And if you didn't go that way, then they wouldn't, It wasn't that it wasn't being just gross for the sake of being, but it was things like that. And the game was very much, you cannot fight anything. Like you have to run away you stand no chance against the threat in this game. So it was like there's no real way to attack anything.
Mhm.
It was really fascinating, but the first two are arguably, to me anyway, the strongest in the series. The best in the series is Silent Hill 2. So James Sunderland is the protagonist in Silent Hill 2, and a lot of the threats of the enemies are psychological things, like, there's a perverse nature to the Pyramid Head character and
Mhm.
why you see it like attacking things the way it does. It's all psychological problems happening with like in his head space. And so yeah, it's just games weren't doing anything like that before. I remember like playing Silent Hill 1 in high school and staying up all night, and you're in the hospital and you're fighting these things and they're trying to stab you with shanks, and it was terrifying. And I would always like end up beating like the boss or that section of the game, and then like the sun would be coming up, and then it was like, oh, it's okay. But it was the first, like, Resident Evil never scared me. Silent Hill scared me. Like Silent Hill had scary sequences, and it was
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah, I've really never really played. I've watched people play these games, but I could never do it. I'm not good at jump scares. I'm not good at
Yeah.
atmospheric stuff. Like, it just really creeps me out. Like, um, really any of that stuff. I've never been into the survival horror stuff. So my experience is very minimal. Um, for some reason, I did see this movie in theaters. I don't know why.
Well, I did
Um,
too, because at the time I was very excited for it. So like Akira Yamoka, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because he's what makes this entire series work. He comes up with
okay.
every track of music he composed, and
Hmm.
the music is the strongest element of the games. So what's interesting with Gonza's take on the film is it's just cribbing so much from the games. Every track of music is the music from the game.
Hmm.
Like it's like if it played in the game, it played here. And at first it's really like, oh, cool, like it's great. But the
It
movie,
is. Yeah.
I just have so many thoughts on this movie. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
What's interesting is, like, so it's these kind of seminal games where, despite it looking very dated now, they did like find a way to work with the technology to like make it more atmospheric and creepy, and so
Sure,
like they're not rendering that much. So it
if
was, innovative in that respect. And the director, from my understanding, like really identified with the games.
he
Like,
loved
he
the
spent
game,
like
I think he,
5 years trying to get the rights to it until he wrote like a personal
yeah,
letter,
he
like
he
asking.
did a personal crusade to get this made, and bless him, there there's nothing cynical about the approach of making this.
Yeah.
It's done with love. I can tell he cares about the property. um I and yeah, I mean, it was made in good faith.
Hmm.
But the problems really bug me, and just the fact that there was a good movie in here, but there's so much studio meddling, because there's a practical effect to the way the monsters are done. Like the girl getting her skin ripped off is really gruesome and good. I think the nurses and the
Hmm.
Pyramid Head character are shoehorned in because they don't fit with the female protagonist, where those are like the psychological demons of a specific character and his specific issues. They
Yeah.
just put him in the movie because they're cool looking, and that is kind of disappointing. But at the same time, you go to a Silent Hill movie, you want to see Pyramid Head. He's an
But then,
iconic threat.
yeah, but then, like, you kind of need that character, and regardless of whether they're female or male, some justification for why that's in there. If the Silent Hill is supposed to be a representative, or is supposed to be representative of your own psyche,
Yeah,
then
tailor it to
where
her
is that coming from? Either
experiences.
tailor
Yeah,
it to, yeah, or tailor her to those,
yeah.
like,
Well,
find a way to
that's
make that character make sense. Or, maybe I am curious why they decided to have a female protagonist when
well, it
the
was
games don't
interesting.
have it.
Well, because the point of it, the original story, and what's shoehorned in by the producers, and why I do like this movie, but I am frustrated beyond repair with it, is because Sean Bean was added because the movie only had females in it.
Hmm.
It was the daughter, the mother, Sybil, and then these cultists. And
Yeah.
there's no male character, and the studio's wigged out. Like, you have to have a man in there. And Sean Bean was hired, and so the movie has this interesting Hellraiser esque kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a really cool thing happening with the story in this universe, and it hits these speed bumps because it has to stop and have Sean Bean go, "Where's my wife?" And everything with that is so sloppy, and the performances are clunky with how it's done. I love Sean Bean; he didn't do anything wrong. It's just that's a weak part of the script.
And
that
it's a
really
completely
pulls it down.
unnecessary part,
Unnecessary. Like
like
watching it again for this, I was like, I really want to make my own fan edit of this because I think you can salvage a lot of it.
is the fan edit, we take out all the Sean Bean parts and then it's
Completely gone. He's not even in the movie. And you start the movie with her coming to in the car. It's a long dolly in on the car with the blinking lights, and little glimpses of how they got there are done in little brief flashbacks. But it's just her looking for her daughter. She gets out. You don't know what her story is. Then you kind of cut to her at the gas station and the husband, and he's canceled the cards. Now you have this mystery of like, why did she take the kid? And then you slowly introduce like the sleepwalking aspect. But all of that, and this is so sloppily done in the fact that it's just weird that like the little girl's performance. I don't want to make fun of a little girl, but it's not strong. And it's a part of this that's really weak, and the whole movie hinges on her so well, which is sad because she ends up playing like multiple characters, and she does a good job with the the dark version that she's playing and all that stuff. But it starts off on a very weak note, and she's not given a lot to do, and just their whole introduction for going to Silent Hill is very weak sauce. Like I think if you lose that and you start in Silent Hill and cut right to that and then introduce those little bits of it, the movie as it is at an hour and a half would be much better than it is now.
So let's talk about like so we talked a little bit about what your experience with the games were. We talked a little bit about this movie, but I'm wondering like what do you the basic plot being that woman goes to Silent Hill, kind of ghost town, because her daughter keeps having nightmares about it, and they want to try and confront it, which is not my approach if I was
that's
having
what I'm
nightmares
saying.
about
Like
a place.
you can
But
do this,
whatever.
but don't do it that way.
Like I might go, more psych. I guess they tried psychologists or something. So this guy,
though they briefly have a brief line about the medication not working or something.
So my main issue with this movie, given that that's the premise, that she is so distraught that she is willing to like essentially, not exactly, but kind of kidnap her daughter, go against her husband's wishes,
which is so out of the blue in the movie,
to try and help her. And then though, like her daughter's missing and she's being taken away from Silent Hill by the police officer, she seems to be very nonchalant about it. Like, so that's my first impression, is just like all this shit is happening. And there are weird demon kids that are exploding into ashes. Like this guy is crucified on a fence, like bleeding everywhere. Her daughter's missing in this horrible nightmarescape. A cop has arrested her and is leaving, and just nonplussed. Just like, why won't you listen to me? Why won't you believe me? Like, didn't you hear what I just said? Like all this stuff.
I like
it's
her
just
as
like,
an actress.
she should be like fighting and screaming.
I know.
And getting,
her performance was not strong for this. It almost had the feeling of all of these actors are foreign and they were saying their lines phonetically.
Yeah, but really they're not. That's the other crazy thing.
But it just reminds me of watching like Zombie 2 or something, like an Italian like splatter movie, and like
or
the same language on the set. So, because it's so weird that she would just. How do you go from like, oh, she's sleepwalking again? I know, we got to do something about it. Yeah. I'm going to kidnap our daughter and not tell you where I'm going, and you're going to jump to the conclusion of canceling all the credit cards on me. It's like, what kind of marriage is this?
What is going on?
Like, I don't understand.
None of these things make any sense.
And like, I get pulled over for acting like a weirdo, and I'm going to run away from the cop. Like, what was her game plan with that? Like,
it doesn't make any sense in any way, and it also doesn't make sense even given what the character's trying to do. So it doesn't make internal logic or external logic in any way. It's just driving it to get to point A to point B to point C in a perfunctory manner, it almost seems like, where, like, again, like, it feels like they got their acting tips from how the character responds to stuff in the video game, which obviously the character isn't going to have a huge facial.
I was going to say, the character at the time had 2 pixels for a face, so there's nothing
exactly.
to read.
And that's what it feels like everybody in this movie at the first 30 minutes is having, like, just pixel faces all over the place. By the way, I figured out what we should have called our podcast.
Pixel faces. Dang, but, copyright that though. We'll use it.
And also, like, there is so much imminent danger as soon as they get to that town. You should be much more concerned. Like, there's just a big hole in the middle of it.
I know,
and some crazy lady attacks you. Like, you should be very, concerned. The cop should be concerned of, like, if the kid is missing, we should really focus on getting the
I
kid,
know.
not getting you arrested. Like, it's just so
It's
crazy.
weird that the internet right now just gets it's such a fervor when they hear the word reshoot, like it's a bad
Mhm.
thing. Like movies need reshoots. And I couldn't watch a film and tell you, like it needs a reshoot, except for this movie. Like
Yeah.
watching this movie, I'm like, oh my God, so much here is good. But if we would just reshoot the opening 20 minutes and fix those weird character moments with her,
Hmm.
this would be a great movie. Like, like
Yeah.
it's a what I meant bringing up earlier, that like her being female and like the character being tail, I just it feels like a really strong feminine message, like the mother protecting her daughter, and like there's
I
a way to
guess,
have it
like,
be all females without
yeah.
like really making a big deal about it, which the movie didn't. It's the inclusion of Sean Bean that makes it feel like, oh, we have to cut to the man doing the journey now. Like that is a weird
It
part of it.
is. It is something I'm wondering about, like why they decided to make that decision. Maybe they just felt it would be a stronger mother-daughter connection than father-daughter or
That's the
something
thing.
like that.
I
Like it
think
would
it's
be a
kind of neat.
shorthand,
Yeah,
like
I
a
think it's
sexist
different.
shorthand.
Well, you don't see the mother looking for the. It's usually the dad looking for, like, it's kind of cliche, the setup in the original game and in
Hmm.
films. So it's kind of neat, the mom looking for her daughter.
Yeah, I do.
Um,
I do like that. It's just,
it's just not handled well in this.
yeah,
It's
it's not
the
handled well. Like
setup is
they're,
terrible.
yeah. Um. Okay, so what did you like about this film?
Well, I'll get into that here because it also has a question for you
Hmm.
basing it, because the movie does so many things from the game really well. Like her discovering that crucified guy and all that is
Yeah.
right from the game. It's like the same exact camera angles even. But is that fan service for me? That's fluff. Like as a moviegoer not familiar with the game, are you like, what the shit? I know you kind of,
And I'll say absolutely to me, yes, because there's
yeah,
too much that happens too soon
yeah.
that it doesn't explain why she's so calm about
I
everything.
know
It's
it's
like
really
that
interesting
is
to
such
me
a huge
because
thing.
as a fan, I'm so happy to see it, but I can really look at it as like, what the hell do people think
That
who
should
don't
have
know the
been like
games?
that should have been a big crossing the threshold moment of like, oh, this isn't just like a deserted town. This, like,
Yeah,
something fucked up's
yeah,
happening. But we don't get to the fucked up part until really they meet the
I
cults, I
know.
think, where
So
people are acting normally to the situation.
what I like ultimately is the story they're going with is very Silent Hill. It's
Hmm.
the art design is the best part. If anyone deserves like a hug and a trophy from this, is the director and how well they made this universe. It doesn't feel cheap in any regards. It doesn't feel like they half-assed it. They really realized this world, and I think they did a wonderful job on it. The script just wasn't there for it,
Hmm.
that goes to my negative, is just the script and the performances are not strong, and it's really disappointing because, like you said, with her, like her reactions to this should be just profound horror, and it's just like, oh, you're not Sharon. Hey, decapitated monster, are you Sharon? Like it's upsetting because I like that actress a lot, and like everyone in this did a really good job. Sybil's what's her name from Walking Dead, and she's great. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't,
I will also say, like, um I agree. I really like the art direction. I like, all the costuming, like everybody who, like, that's those scenes with like the dark nurses, like, all those actors did a really great job
yeah.
of being, I think they're probably like, some of them are probably professional dancers or
Oh,
something, because
sure, sure.
they're doing really good coordinated, highly controlled movements,
And it's
very,
unsettling.
cool and
It's very
impressive, and it's
creepy.
unsettling.
Yeah,
And I also say, like, Alice Krieg, I think her name is, or Kridge, it's
yeah.
got to be Krieg, who was the Borg Queen from Star Trek,
That's right. She was great in
First
this.
Contact. She
Yeah,
was awesome. Like, she was great in this, and she always plays like a good, like, unsettling
character. Yeah,
person.
yeah,
And so that was really cool, as she was playing kind of the cult leader Christabella or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and all of the costuming around the cultists and those weird, suits that they were like with gas masks on and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
very
I think it was
interesting.
gas masks. That
Yeah.
was all cool. But it just comes down to, like, the plot. Like, nobody's having and the reaction to it. Nobody's having a normal reaction to this.
Well,
Like, it also, like, what is actually happening? So, like, the town is being turned into this horrible, like, monster
so yeah, so the
infested
movie
place
and
based on Alyssa's torment.
yeah,
And
Alyssa's torment
but it
creates
only happens
this.
at certain times of the day
Yeah.
or something.
Now, I don't
And
know
how are
why
the
it is.
cultists still alive then?
How
Like,
are they still alive? It feels like they're like trapped in time or something, which I guess is what they allude to because at the end when they go home, they're not really there. So maybe they are kind of touching on that without explaining, which is great. I don't
maybe
want
it's
things.
just a torment. It's not meant to
Yeah, like it's
kill
like a
them or something.
purgatory,
Yeah.
and
Okay. Sure.
and I don't need it spoon fed. I love it when there's some mystery to it, but I've seen this movie like 4 times somehow since it's come out, and I always miss the fact that she was raped by the janitor, and had Sharon the baby. Like I'm always confused by how they're getting to that. Like I don't know. I'm
I
always
don't know.
looking away at that part. Like it's weird how that's set up. Like they dance around it because that's really awful. She's a kid, but it's strange. I'm lost in
Yeah,
how did
I
that
don't
happen
get
in the
the baby. Like
'70s?
the thing that I heard was like there was a woman who had a baby,
Yeah,
and that baby was selected as like a sacrifice. So that's Alyssa.
yeah,
And then they weren't able to kill her, but like they set her on fire as like a sacrifice to their god or whatever. And this apparently is like more Christian, it seems, than the actual Silent Hill, which is more like death cult demon
yeah.
worshiping or something like that. Um, so because she's not dead, like through her torment, her soul is split in half, and the bad half stays in Silent Hill and torments them. So there's her physical body, the bad half, which is the little girl running around, and then the good part is manifested as the little girl who is having all the nightmares. And
But
that's
how
all
does
I
she
could
get to the
understand.
orphanage as an infant? They show that scene, and I'm like, oh, what the hell's
I
going
don't
on?
know.
This is
That's what I
unnecessarily
don't know.
convoluted.
So
Yeah,
like that's where like the woman, like the gray-haired older woman, is her
is her
actual
mother.
mother.
That's her actual mother. Yeah,
Um, but it seems very convoluted because like even like when I was reading the game is somehow even more convoluted.
I was gonna
Where
say I've
like
beaten the game. I love it to death.
yeah,
If you were to, even
like
reading about it before
where
this, I couldn't explain it to you.
I was reading the good ending was the people like the guy ends up with a different baby.
Yeah,
Like that's the happy ending.
yeah,
Is
that's
your
the happy
daughter's
ending.
this daughter you loved is actually a demon and is dead,
Yeah, but
sort of.
here's
But
a baby.
here's a replacement baby, which
Yeah,
is just as good,
yeah. Well,
which is an
your alternative
insane
endings. Did you
concept.
read what those were? The aliens and the
Yeah,
dog. So,
I saw there was something about alien abductions, and then the
yeah,
bad ones were like just almost everybody dies or
yeah.
something.
No,
Um,
the dog. I think was this aliens in the first one. I think at the end of the second one, you'll go into a room and you realize a dog was at a control panel controlling everything. Then it's
so
over.
that's fun.
That it's fun. I do like
Do
that
you
they do that.
do ratings?
Yeah, that's tough.
How many
If I
pyramid
were to,
heads would you give it?
I would give it for the script and performances a 2 out of 10.
Yeah,
But because I don't say the good outweighs the bad, but because I respect the non cynicism and like like they really did try to make this a Silent Hill movie. I gotta give it a 5 out of 10. Like I hate
yeah.
that like have it be down the middle of the road like that, but it's just it's so weighed down by the performances and the script.
I would say like the ultimate travesty, or the not travesty, but the ultimate um problem with this movie is that it's boring. It's a boring movie to
Yeah,
watch.
and Silent Hill shouldn't
And
be boring.
I'm of the opinion of a movie about a demon or a crazy Christian apocalypse cult that burns witches at the stake, where a little girl's soul is split into two pieces and is causing them to live in a endless cycle of torment, should be at least
Mildly entertaining.
engaging. Yeah, like
Yeah.
engaging. You should be sucked in a little bit.
The
So
antagonist is
I can't give it more than a 4. You know,
mm, yeah.
like just because like it's they have so many good technical aspects that are interesting to watch, but the whole movie in of itself isn't fun. Like
Yeah.
there's no part where you're like enjoying watching it. Not
No.
even like not enjoying it because it's so like gross or like upsetting. It's just really not interesting.
It's not. You
So
don't
like
care about the characters. You
nobody
don't
cared.
really
Yeah.
care about her quest to find her daughter, it's just kind of playing out for you. And, like, I remember
Yeah.
just on first watch, it was just so weird. I'm like, this looks like what I wanted to do. Like, it looks and feels like what I wanted. It's playing the music that I'm so in love with. I've burnt out on this iPod, but I'm bored. Like,
Yeah.
like, I don't understand why it how we could cross so many boxes that were right and not and still fail, which is sad.
Uh, so we talked about this a little bit, but what would you want to do to make it better? I think similar to Doom, I don't know if it's any kind of recasting or even getting a different
No,
director. I think
really,
it's
that's
just
what I touched on earlier. Was like, just do me I just want to reshoot the beginning and the
mhm,
end. Like give it more mystery. Like, you could even have this really, like, poorly thought out setup of her, like, taking the daughter without telling her husband.
mhm.
But just this to establish, like, they've seen all the doctors, they can't figure it out, and the daughter keeps leaving the bedroom, and don't just show her, like, about to jump off of a cliff to a waterfall. Like have her walking down a highway, like she on her own is trying to walk there in the night,
Mhm.
and they realize she's going to go to West Virginia regardless, and, like, gets on bus, like, whatever, like, she's going to go to West Virginia, so the mom takes her there. Like, I get that's what the movie is trying to do, but it's poorly conveyed. Like, make that
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
lose
And
Sean
and
Bean's
like
character, and make it tighter, make it hour and a half, and just, like, really focus it.
yeah, I probably wouldn't even have the Sean Bean stuff. If you were going to, like you had said, it would be more background, like
Like, sure,
um
he's in it, but none
you
of
know,
his trying to find her is
I wouldn't do
necessary.
this like dual, like you're in Silent Hill and then you're out of Silent Hill, like
Yeah.
separate. Like it's nope, it's very much in our world, it's happening.
Yep.
There's no like outside stuff. I would have liked to have seen something about like Silent Hill is psychologically imprinted on
I
you,
know.
like what you were
Because
talking about.
if they're going to pull so much from two, they needed to just do the storyline of two, and they could have it still be her. What's strong about two is it starts with a guy getting a letter from his wife saying, "I remember that place. I'm in Silent Hill waiting for you." And he's like, "Oh, she died 3 years ago. How did I
Yeah.
get this letter?" That is a strong boom. You're in the movie. They should have done that, like a
I
letter from her
yeah.
husband or whatever. Like, I
I
get the story
yeah.
is focused around the girl, but I don't know.
I
Like,
would have liked to have seen, yeah, like they set it up where like she's, absconded with the daughter. We kind of learn a little bit through backstory. We first assume that either she's leaving an abusive situation
yeah, yeah.
or she has kidnapped the daughter without
But
telling the husband.
now
So
we're
it's like
thinking
it's
about it.
it's something, there's menace somewhere.
Yeah.
Then what actually happens is as he's chasing after her, you realize like no, there isn't a menace from them and they're fine. It's just they have at an impasse of how to handle this and they are
Yeah.
desperate. And so
That's
the mother has made a desperate decision. This is all the only thing I can think of to do. I have to take my daughter here. My husband doesn't want to.
yeah.
So he follows her and then the movie follows the two of them as they encounter people in Silent Hill separately. So they have
Oh,
their own experience
sure,
around it
sure.
and they're being confronted with their fears and inadequacies and
And that
as
way
they're
now,
looking for their daughter.
yeah, now
And
you
then
kind
they
of see that
meet.
it's different for both of them.
Yeah.
Like, he's got his own Silent Hill, she's got her own, like,
And then they
then that
meet
tells
and are
us.
connected, like maybe they're captured by the cult and now they have a shared um representation of Silent Hill around their daughter and maybe that's how like you could come to a happy ending where they needed to come together
Oh,
and have a unity to kind of heal the two halves of the little girl
I like that. Yeah.
so that she can be reborn and the tormented part of her can die and
Yeah.
be at peace and she can be
Message.
reborn
Yeah.
as a maybe not a new child but as a not psychologically scarred and tormented little girl
Yeah.
who doesn't need to come to Silent Hill anymore. They kill the cult and
Boom.
then end of movie, go home,
Keep everything else the
there.
same, more or less.
I mean,
Like,
keep the artistry of the character design, keep
sure.
some beats, like
And it's
tie
even
those visual images that people like of the game
sure,
back to their psychology in some way,
sure.
justify it. But you it does take kind of a rewrite in order to make it feel like a story that like complete a story circle.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But that's the thing. They're so close. It just needs that rewrite and that restructuring. And
They just need to make it again. They were so close.
they
They
were
just
so
need
close.
to do it again.
Start it up. Well, they tried that with the sequel. My God, that's bad. We'll save that for when we get to it. But spoiler alert, not good. Yeah.
So anyway,
So Silent Hill, I give 5 out of 10 Pyramid Heads, 4 out of 10 for you, and
Yeah.
that kind of sums it up.
Is that was worse than Doom, right?
Well, I said to you, it made me appreciate Doom more watching it because I think Doom is more entertaining.
Doom is definitely a movie that you can be entertained by.
Like Doom would be fun to drink with people and laugh at.
Yeah,
I would worry people would fall asleep if I asked them to watch Silent Hill with me. Back when people used to come over to watch movies, but yeah, that would be a hard one to say. Like, hey guys, come on over. We're gonna watch Silent Hill. I posted on Facebook today that I was watching Silent Hill and I was expecting comments like, why?
The technical difficulties production.